Right, hello, and welcome to another Dauntless development video. This is another C# tutorial, and today we're going to be looking at strings and console input. So where we left off last time, we'd just been using if statements to output different things to the console depending on what the value of this variable a was. Now we're going to start off by covering specifically strings. So I did mention this briefly before. A string is basically just a collection of characters, and this is kind of how you see it represented when you want to store one. You store it between speech marks. Now, you can also add variables onto strings. So, as an example here, we've got console.writeLine a equals 3. Now, what we can do is we could say console.writeLine, and we could say a is, and then we could put plus a. And what that does, so what I replaced is the number 3. I left a space here because it will be structured exactly how you write it. So I left a space there, and then I said plus a. So what this does is this says, okay, we're going to add something to the string at the end. And you can keep doing this all the way through. So I'll just show you now. I'll make A3 so that it'll actually accept this. So it'll run this bit. And you can see there that it says A equals 3. So that's what you expect. But you could also say, as I said, you could add more on, and you could say, I don't know, you want to put a space first because it is written exactly as you write it. Hooray. And then A really is, and then A again. And then when you run that, you see that it's exactly as you expect it to be. So as I said, like if I didn't put these spaces in, I'll just take them all out just to kind of show why I'm putting them in. You can see it kind of mushes them all together. So you do need to put the spaces. So that's one way of adding variables to strings so you can put it in. But what's better, another way of doing this, which can be a lot better, is I will just delete all this. So what we can have is, instead of adding it on the end, we can put a little $sign at the front, and then within the string, within these quotations, we can use these curly braces and then put the variable name. And now what we can see when we hit start is A is 3, just the same. So this is another way of writing it. It's a little bit less it's not necessarily less complicated, but you don't have to keep opening and closing quotations and adding plus signs. If you wanted to put, say, a lot of different variables, you could still, so you wouldn't need to put the plus, but you could say A is 3, and then hooray, and then you could say it's A really is A, and you could do exactly the same, but a little exclamation mark on the end, why not? And then you have basically the same thing that we had before, except all in one quotation instead of in multiple, which is a little bit nicer. Obviously, it's not the most important thing, but it is, obviously, it looks a lot tidier, and you can keep it all together. So, one thing that this does show us, though, is now that we can put the value of the variable in here, if we did need, say, to output the value within this console, and this is all we wanted to do, we wouldn't need all these if statements here. So what we're going to do is we'll just kind of get rid of all this. Get rid of all this for now. And what we can say is console dot writeLine. And the reason we use writeLine and not write is because write will just add on to the previous line, whereas writeLine starts a new line. So we say console.writeLine, and then we can just say here, oops, we'll use a $sign. If I can hit the right key, where is it? There it is. And then open quotations, and we can say the value of A is, and then I'll put a little colon, and we put some curly braces, and then I just put A. So it doesn't matter what A is now. When we run this, it'll say 3. We could change it to 4, and we run it, and it says 4, and it'll always update. So we didn't need all those if statements. So if you say wanted to do behavior, I mean, obviously this is just, that just simplifies what we were doing before. There's never a situation where you would be using the if statement to just output what it is really. But this is just, you know, you could optimize that way. So what we can do now is we can actually take input from the user. So instead of simply setting the value here, we can change it from inside the console. So what we could do is we could say console.writeLine, and then we could say, what is your number? Just ask the user for a number, and then we'll need a string, and we'll just call it line, and we'll say console.readLine. So what this is going to do is it will send this message, what is your number, then it will wait until the user has typed something and hit enter, and it will store that as line, and then it will output the value of A here. But what we need to do here is we can say console dot write line, and then I can say your number is, and then if I put the $sign in front, where is it? There. So now when we run this, now obviously I'm just going to get rid of this for now. I'll just comment it out. In fact, I'll just delete it. So now when we run this, we'll see what is your number, and I could type, say, anything, so 124, and your number is 124. Now the problem with this, so right now it's reading and it's storing it. However, this is a string. Now a string, as I said, is just a collection of characters like letters or numbers or whatever. It's not information that can be used for calculations. So if you want to do any calculations, you'd have to convert this. Now what you can do is you can use something. So I'm going to say make an int called A, just like we had before, and I'm going to make this int 32. So int 32 is just a 32-bit signed integer. So it can be positive or negative, and it takes up 32 bits. So if you remember, if you watched the previous ones where I talked about variables and their different like data capacities that they take up, an int takes up 32. This int 32 takes up int 32. So what we do is we say int32 dot parse. So what parse does is it tries to convert a string into this piece of information. So we can then pass in line, and what it'll do is it'll read this line, store it as line. It will then take it and convert it into a number that can be used, called A, and we could then say A here if we wanted. And for now, this will just appear exactly the same. So what is your number? And I'll just say 5, and your number is 5. It appears exactly the same. But what we can do now, which we couldn't do with the string, is we could say, in fact, we'll do this, your number is 5, and then we can make another int called B, and we'll say that equals A times 2. And then we can say console.writeLine. And I'll just use a $sign there. Your number doubled is, and then I can put B in here. And then when I run it, you'll see that, say if I put 5 again, your number is 5, your number doubled is 10. Now what we could do, instead of having this extra variable, if we wanted, is we could say, instead of having B, we could say A times 2. And that would work just the same. You get, what is your number? 5. Your number doubled is 10. So that's kind of how you take input from the console and how you can use those variables in a string. Now we'll probably do more stuff like this in the future, but that's all for this video. What we can do is we can use this kind of thing to make a whole calculator if you wanted, which is something we'll probably do next video. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.